Russell Westbrook is a loser. And this is why Russell Westbrook is a loser. Okay. Now, I obviously have done a bit of research. My research goes up to Christmas Day for the stats and things like that. Okay. And let's make this clear firstly. All right. You spoke today, you said like, oh, Russell Westbrook has won lots of games. Cool, that's true. All right. I'm sure Russell Westbrook is a cool dude and great person and all this other shit. But our topic here is, will Russell Westbrook help you win a game when it matters? And the answer here, as far as I'm concerned, is no, because he's a loser. Okay. Now, here's a few things that I guess I've come up with. All right. Now, the first one here is, as we know, since we're basketball knowledgeable people and experienced in the game, that it's a team game. That's the biggest thing. It's a team game. All right. Russell Westbrook thinks he is the team. All right. He goes out there, gets lots of stats. Don't get me wrong. Looks great. Yeah. Triple double, Mr. Triple double, all time triple doubles. But that doesn't help your team overall in the long run. Okay. Sure, you'll win some games that way, but he goes out there, gets 20, 30 points a game, 10 boards, 10 assists, does everything. And the four other players just stand around. That's just the reality of how often, especially in OKC, that's how his teammates played. He went out there stat padding, wanting to chase those triple double stats, and ultimately was trying to find that assist, trying to grab those rebounds. There's plenty of YouTube clips you can go out there where he's basically stealing rebounds of his teammates and things like that, trying to get to that double-digit rebound count and things like that. So doesn't help his team win, okay, in that sort of situation. Great players, okay, great players do lots of good things. Okay, that's the key. All right, but they do certain things really well for their team. All right, if you think about certain great players like Jordan, okay, you think about certain players like Shaq and Kobe and Duncan and all these other players, they do lots of great things, but they had one or two primary skill sets that they really excelled at, which made them great. Okay, and that allowed the rest of the team to be a team. That was the key. All right. The players around them got involved. And when you know in basketball, when you have to guard 5 players, all right, it's much easier to guard 1. Okay. That's the key. All right. So he tries to do too much. All right. And the key here is that, and we know this, he can't shoot. Okay. He can't shoot, something that I'm sure there's plenty of debate about, but he can't shoot. His stats are woeful. I screenshotted them here. So what? He's a career 43% 2-point shooter, field goal percentage, and he's got a career 30% 3-point shooter. Okay, and he's at 78% at the free throw line. Okay, he hasn't had a peak season. I was looking at this the other day, over 47%, and that was in Houston. All right, that was in Houston, where obviously Harden took a lot of the attention and gave him a bit of open looks, and that was a fairly deep team ready to make a push for the finals, or that was a goal, obviously, in Houston. And every other season, he has shot 45% or less, okay, from the field. As a 3-point shooter, it's even less than that. His best season is 34%, okay, as a 3-point shooter. Yet, when it comes to a clutch or key game in the playoffs, okay, he shoots even worse. He shoots even worse, okay, in his playoff stats that he's played in his career. He shoots 111 games here, okay, so it's not a small sample size, all right, 40%. His field goal drops from 43 to 40%. His three-pointer shoot drops, from 30% to 29%, okay, but he shoots more. He shoots worse, but he shoots more, okay, in these games when they count. Okay, and as a byproduct of that, I pulled up these stats just before. Obviously, and we all know this. Okay, he hasn't won that many playoff games. Okay, once they've got to those deciding rounds, first round loss to Lakers, first round loss to Dallas, first finals lost in that season where they had obviously Harden's back then, OKC. Semi-final loss for Memphis. Then conference finals loss, Spurs, and obviously all these rounds that he lost, it just keeps going. Obviously, including the last 4 out of the last 5 seasons has been a first round loss. That's been like a 4-1 or 4-2 loss. Okay, the teams aren't even competitive. Okay, they might get that one win, maybe that second win. They don't go to a game 7 clearly. Okay, he doesn't help his team win. Okay, he's a loser. That's my whole argument here. Okay, now obviously with these situations, okay, as we know, Houston traded for him, hoping for the missing piece, or obviously getting disgruntled Chris Paul out of town, and obviously hopefully bringing Westbrook in to push him over the edge. That was a one-season experiment. They obviously lost in the, let me bring it up, what did they lose here? In the semifinals there, 4-1, okay, and they just pulled that down. They pulled that down. It wasn't even worth having a second try, okay, to go again. That's the point. You know, you see players close up, and you go, is this even worth going again? All right. Credit to OKC. They tried for many, many years, okay, in that sort of way. Then it went to Washington, okay. Obviously, in fact, they made the playoffs, which was a bit of a surprise in the bubble and things like that. All right. And they lost the first round as well. And, you know, they were willing to move on. Okay, willing to move on. He wanted out of town anyway, and you know, he's off to the Lakers. Now, you're going to make an argument here because you're going to say, oh well, you know, you're saying that he wins games. Yeah, he's won lots of games. He's won more games than he's lost. Okay, but let me pull up this little stat here that to me was the crux of what I'm looking at here. That why I'm saying Russell Westbrook is a loser. Now, when he was in OKC that last season, okay, they won 49 and 33. Okay, he had Paul George, okay, and he's had superstar teammates for pretty much his whole career. That's the thing. Westbrook has had great teammates and relatively good teams his whole career. KD, Harden, Paul George, Carmelo went there. Obviously in Washington, he had Bradley Beal, okay, and then now in the Lakers, he's obviously got, you know, LeBron and obviously AD, even though he's injured and so on and so forth, okay. He's got the depth, okay, but when he left OKC, okay, and went to Houston, because obviously he was in OKC for many, many years, okay, OKC had a higher winning percentage, even though they had a weaker team with Chris Paul as the point guard. That's a stat. That's a stat, okay? So they won only 59% of the games with Westbrook, but they won 61% of their games with Chris Paul when they were trying to rebuild. They weren't even trying. They had all these draft picks, okay? And they were just like, oh, you know, oh no, we're winning too many games here, okay? When he went to Houston, now Houston was built to win. He made Houston worse, okay? So obviously take out CP3, put in Westbrook, all right? With CP3, they won 64% of the games. Take CP3 out and put Westbrook in there. They went down to only 61% of their games. They lost. They lost more games when they made that trade, okay, in that situation. Now, when they went to, they obviously shipped him off to Washington, okay, for John Wall's contract. Okay, Washington would have traded anybody for John Wall's contract. Let's be clear. Okay, they got a healthy Westbrook, and that was supposed to be the biggest win of the trade period for them, I think, at that point, because you know who would have taken John Wall's contract. Okay, now let's be clear. Washington were terrible at that point anyway. They were tearing it down. John Wall had missed the whole season. They were trading away and looking to rebuild to a certain extent. Okay, and yes, the statistics here show that yes, Russell Westbrook made Washington better because they upgraded from their starting point guard from Ish Smith that season primarily to Russell Westbrook. Okay, so all right, that's pretty obvious. But here's the catch. Okay, again, they take him out of Washington and send him to the Lakers, okay? And again, and taking obviously the stats through to Christmas Day this season, they are worse off significantly, all right? From going from Schroeder, obviously now in Boston, all right, to Westbrook now as their one man, okay? They've gone from 58% that they won obviously and a 42 and 30 record the year before now to obviously below 500. Okay, and yeah, sure, you can, this is not this conversation, obviously you can tell me about that, you got no depth or AD's injured or all this other stuff. But the point here is Russell Westbrook does not help you win because he's a loser. Okay, that's the whole point, all right, that I'm trying to make here. Now, I guess the end of the day, okay, there's numerous players out there. In fact, there's that trade rumor out there that they should probably trade Russell Westbrook for John Wall, right? or Russell Westbrook for Kyrie, maybe. Okay. In fact, that would probably be better off trading Russell Westbrook for Dennis Schroeder. Okay, because they would probably win more games because Schroeder would come in and he would play his role versus obviously Russell Westbrook coming in and trying to be the team. And that is why I believe Russell Westbrook is a loser.
It's a lot. It's a lot to unpack. I still feel pretty confident. I don't know if I'm going to retort half the stuff because I think we're going to cover on the same things. So I guess first, you referenced the team sports. So Westbrook has been quite fortunate. He played with a very good OKC squad, and then he's had a couple of superstars that have accumulated over the last couple of years. So that can inflate stats, right? It could inflate stats, but I've got a couple of interesting ones to flow at you. Number one, he is second in career usage rate. Okay, so that means that he has the ball in his hands a lot. All right, now having the ball in your hands means that you make a lot of decisions. You've admitted that he makes poor decisions. All right, and I'll even forward this one to you. He's career 4th in turnovers. All right, not a great stat for a dude that's probably got a bit of time left in the league and could easily get that up. The reason why I mentioned those two things is because he has the ball in his hands a lot and he is making more mistakes than most people who ever play in the NBA. You would think this would negatively impact his stats, but they don't. All right. If you're familiar with something called PER, right? PER, player efficiency rating, it bases off an average of 15. All right. So that means that per minute you're on the floor, offensive stats get put into it. Turnovers should be killing him, but he's at a 22.9, which is above league average. So instantly, he is a player that has more positive impact than negative impact, despite the fact that the turnovers exist. His career plus minus is 34th in NBA career history, right? At a 4.5, which means that when he's on the floor, he impacts it positively more than negatively, right? More than many other players in the league. What else do we have? You mentioned the shooting as well. So effective field goal percentage is at 46.8%. Obviously, you would like him to hit at least half of his shots. The fact that he's just under that for a slashing guard without a jump shot is somewhat impressive. We look at the regular season wins. He has won for games that he's played, because you've looked at records, but you haven't looked at games that he actually played. He's won 584. He's lost 394, which puts him at a 15% regular season won. For his playoffs, he's at 57 and 58, which means he's lost one more playoff game than he has won. Fun fact, this is me digging in a little bit more. He's made the playoffs 11 times. And in those 11 times, he's lost to the eventual champions 6 of them. So you've referenced the fact that they lost to the Lakers. In his second season, they went on to win the championship. Obviously, Dallas ended up winning the championship. Then you had obviously the Miami Heat when they actually made the finals. Fun fact, in 12-13, when he became injured against Patrick Beverley, if you remember, they were 2-0 at that point, and then the team went on 3-6 and was eliminated in the second round. They gave the Spurs more of a run than the Miami Heat did in that series as well. And obviously they have the infamous 3-1 blow to Golden State, but they gave them a pretty good run. And then yes, from 16-17 to 20-21, his playoff stats are incredibly discouraging. So for the first half of Russell Westbrook's career, you could make a really strong case and say that he's had quite a strong career. As it's progressed, it does seem like he's a little bit on the decline. And that probably aligns a little bit with his play style. So not a jump shooter, slashing point guard. He's had a couple of knee injuries, nothing significant, but you do notice that slowly deteriorates a little bit more as time goes on. There's one more stat I'm going to throw at you, which is really, really interesting. Win shares. All right, so win shares basically look at offensive and defensive stats, how much that impacted the floor, and if that was actually helpful to your team. It's very complicated math. I'm happy to send it through to you, but I was quite fascinated because he is 75th in NBA history all time of career win shares. So he's essentially attributed to 106 games that he has single-handedly influenced the outcome of. That's how they kind of calculate that. Now, when you look at players like LeBron and Jordan, they're way up. They're 250, 300 plus. All right, so clearly they're on a whole different status. But he still has that. In the current league, he's 7th. So, I mean, current league stats are a little bit biased because that's a total accumulative stat, whereas, you know, a rookie or even someone like Ja Morant could be more impactful to the team at this point than he is. I was surprised at this one. Offensively, he is contributing to the wins at 100th in NBA history, but defensively he contributes at 64. And I didn't delve into the defensive stats too much, but clearly he's having more of an impact on the defensive end than we realize. To retort the triple double thing, which I didn't even have in my stats, we all recognize there are some useless moments in a basketball game. There are defensive rebounds that don't really change the outcome of a team's possession. So, for example, let's say it's a long three with a 1-on-4 situation, and he's the one that grabs the rebound. It's not really consequential. He's not stealing from his teammate. He's not negatively impacting them. He could be impacting people's like salaries or contracts in the future because they don't make an All-NBA squad or don't hit a certain quota of rebounds. But ultimately, he's not really changing certain games. The hustle, right? Offensive rebounds are a component of his triple doubles. I can find the stat for you very quickly, but you can't just will that as well. Like, you don't just have almost 200 triple doubles in your career by having a loser's mentality. You do have to go out and want to take every rebound from everyone. Obviously, acknowledging the assists as well. He's currently 12th in the NBA, like career NBA history of assists. Now, all right, he might be selfish. He might be looking for those. They might be really biased stats, but there have been other great point guards that have been scrutinized of that. Chris Paul is someone who has been, scrutinized of that. For example, deliberately waiting until certain parts of the shot clock to pass the ball to shooters so that they can maybe get you an extra shot. What was the last thing that I had? Oh yeah, his Hall of Fame probability. So this is stats that link to the likelihood that he gets inducted into the Hall of Fame. It currently sits at 99.9%. And assuming that everything goes to plan, he should finish top 10 in rebounds and assists and top 30 in scoring. And the scoring could drastically fluctuate. And any of those stats could drastically fluctuate given on what happens over the next couple of years. If the topic was he is not an impactful player to a team, we'd have a stronger case. But he is a winner. All right. Statistically, he has won a lot more than he's lost, and he impacts winning a lot more than he hurts it. So that would be where I kind of like soothe my argument at this point.
I'm gonna say some cool stats there, and no one's arguing that Russell Westbrook is a Mr. Stats man, right? He's got plenty of stats. In fact, 99.9% Hall of Fame probability. Why not just make that 100%? What what more would it have to do to miss out of Hall of Fame? I'm not saying he wouldn't make Hall of Fame, but I think the key here, and I've got this, you've probably seen the Carmelo site, yeah, where they do player projections and things like that. And the stats for Russell Westbrook in the last 3 seasons, okay, and obviously, yes, it is the last 3 seasons. Yes, he is a little bit older. That's true, okay. Is that he's obviously significantly below average as a shooter. We covered that before, okay. But obviously, like you said, all right, his usage is is really up there, okay, as one of the all-time great usage players, in the league, and but he's a player that doesn't do much positive with the ball because he can't shoot. Again, all right, on the Carmelo site, his assists ratio is obviously significant because he averages 10 assists a game, okay, all right, but his turnover ratio, as we all know, is the totally opposite. Okay, so for every assist he throws, his turnover, every 2 assists is like 2-to-1 ratio, all right, at the moment, if not higher. Okay, it totally undoes the whole philosophy of looking after the ball and successful basketball. Again, with his, he's a great rebounder as a guard. Okay, and he's obviously above average there as a guard. Above average is a steals rate as well. Okay, but his actually defensive plus minus is minus 1.7. Okay, his metrics again do not help his team win. Okay, I think you talked about win shares. Yeah, you talked about win shares. Is that right? That what you were bringing up before, that he's got quite fairly high win shares. Correct me if I'm wrong though. Win shares is reflective of the team structure that's within the team. Is that not correct?
So look, I had to do a bit of reading on it just to make sure. Basically, what they do is they take minutes played, player age, field goals, field goal attempt, free throw attempts, total rebounds, assists, personal fouls, and figure out the personal impact of the game. And then they have to look at the team stats as well and do some math to calculate it. So it's, look, if I was more confident, I could give you a better articulation of it. I can send you the link, but it's not as clear cut as I had 10 points, 5 assists, and 5 rebounds, so I helped my team 20 points. It's more than that.
I was watching this clip today, I think, of LeBron making 3 passes and his teammates missed 3 open looks. I guess that doesn't help his win share, does it? So,
well, there's so many things that go into it, I guess, because a missed shot is not always like there's different types of missed shots, right? There's a long rebound that ekes into a fast break, and then there's an air ball that goes straight out of bound and allows for you to set up on defense. And it goes the same as the turnovers as well. I'd probably contest that a little bit. He will throw the ball into the stands at some point and hit some poor person enjoying their hot dog in the 30th row. But the point is that isn't negatively impacting your team as badly as someone who maybe turns it over on like crossing the half court and getting stripped. That's more impactful to your team negatively than throwing the ball straight out of bounds. Now, I did not go through all of his turnovers and figure out what he has and hasn't done, but a traveling violation, anything that stops the dead ball isn't necessarily as detrimental to your team as a live turnover, right? And it's the same for rebounds as well, and it's the same for shots. If the topic was he makes poor decisions or he doesn't have a very team-orientated mindset, you can make that case that he has a lot of blunders. But in terms of just winning, he wills games. So you referenced it as well. The Washington Wizards probably shouldn't have had any business being as good as they were. Do you think that he had something to do with that or not?
Well, the Washington Wizards was like when KD left OKC. All right. And Westbrook became a big focal point there, and he willed them to 40-something wins that season. I think he won the MVP that season. I think that season was his first season he averaged a triple-double. Okay. No one's saying that he's not a Hall of Famer player here, nor is he a great basketball stat machine. You know what I mean? But he does not help your team win in the ultimate sense, despite he does help you win more games than he loses. That's the most important metric here, all right, in that sort of sense. And I guess on a simple face value, I know you pulled up a lot more other stats that I didn't pull up, but if you simply took his the players that he replaced when he went into teams or players that came in after him, okay, it's clear that he doesn't help those teams win. Okay, it's as simple as that.
If this debate was Chris Paul is more impactful to a team than Russell Westbrook, I don't think either of us would argue.
I'm saying Schroeder is more impactful for a team than Russell Westbrook.
That could be more of an issue of the roles. So, for example, the Lakers didn't need a third alpha superstar that's ball dominant. They actually needed a role player, right? That doesn't mean that Russell Westbrook's not a winner. It just means he's a bad fit for that team. It's the same argument for like Allen Iverson and Carmelo Anthony, correct? They're both alphas. They put the ball in the hoop, but there are teams that weren't designed for them, right? Not every player is any team automatically. Like LeBron, KD, Steph Curry probably. They're players that you can put on a team and assume they should be championship contenders, right? Westbrook's not on that level, but it doesn't mean that he's not a winner, because statistically speaking, less than 3% of the league wins a championship ring at the end of a season. And there is a lot of great players that have made it through their entire career without getting to the finals, let alone winning it.
I feel now we're going to have a debate about the dictionary definition of loser, and that was a little bit too broad.
I'm going to pull it up for you because I pulled it up. A winner is known as someone who wins something, or a thing/person that is a success or is likely to be successful. And so statistically speaking, if we stopped Russell Westbrook's career today, if you said you have to put this man who's got all of these accolades and all of this history behind him into a game, should that game be more likely to win or lose? You would have to say it's more likely to win.
I think that statistically, I'm not going to argue that because that's a fact, but I think it's clear in many areas we've covered tonight that if we simply termed winning and losing as going all the way, Russell Westbrook is a loser. He will not win a ring.
Well, no, that's forecasting. So there's two different versions of this question. Is that anyone who doesn't win an NBA championship is a loser? Because then you have people such as, Brian Scalabrine, who will be held in higher esteem than Russell Westbrook. And I don't think that's an effective way of looking at people's careers. But then also, are we forecasting, right? So we're saying, will he win a ring by the end of his by the end of his career? Now, I think both of us wouldn't have picked that he would have went from a tenure of OKC, Rockets, Wizards, and then Lakers. I don't think anyone would have anticipated that 5 years ago. Will he win a ring this season? Almost undoubtedly no, right? You really don't know after last season where everybody got injured and two teams that had never made the finals in a very long period of time did. You could say, shit, maybe everyone does their Achilles at the same time. You know what I mean? Like, and then the Lakers are the default team. Maybe there's a bunch of 10-day contracts versus the Lakers in the Western Conference Finals. You don't know. But no, likelihood is that he's not going to win a ring this season. Next season, who knows? Right? There have been like Tracy McGrady almost picked up a ring on the Spurs. You know what I mean? And then we would have been holding him in the esteem of, he's a winner because he got a ring.
I think now your technicalities are
it's going to be great. It's going to be great.
I don't think you would ever argue Tracy McGrady was a winner if he won a ring with the Spurs, because there's too many players that piggybacked on a ring that were not a primary component or even a rotational player to a certain extent in that campaign. I guess if Westbrook was to be 38 years old and be a six man, and the team was deep enough for him to average 15 and 5 and 5, and they were to win a ring, I think that would be, possible. But for Westbrook to go out there and get his 25, 10 and 10 to win a ring, I don't think he would ever win a ring in that sort of capacity.